Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Lakers Collective. I'm Trevor Lane. Going to do a bit of a mailbag episode here, answering some of the super chat questions that we didn't get to on our live shows. Now, frankly, most of them are trade related, so this is going to kind of wind up as a trade Q&A. So can't wait to dive in and talk Lakers trades with all of you. Before I get into all of it, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported this channel. Jason, Jovan, and myself are beyond thrilled with the response that we've gotten, all the kind words we've received about this endeavor, what we've been doing, teaming up, the three of us. So again, thank you very much to everybody who has subscribed, everybody who's following us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, written reviews for us. We appreciate all of you so much. All right, let's start here. Rama said, would you rather trade Rui for Wiggins and keep the first, go all in for Herb and have Rui on the bench? So keep Rui, but you have to give up the first, but you get Herb Jones. I would rather go get Herb Jones. Personally, if it were up to me, I'd rather go get Herb Jones because I think he's the cleaner, longer-term fit than Andrew Wiggins is. So if you're telling me I've got to give up the first, but I'm getting Herb Jones and I get to keep Rui, to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. I would definitely do that. Andrew Wiggins, I like just fine. If you told me I could turn Rui into Andrew Wiggins, I'd probably do that. In fact, you know what I would do? If I could have either one of those things, I would trade Rui for Andrew Wiggins and then give up the first for Herb Jones and have Wiggins and Herb in this hypothetical. Wouldn't that be a trade deadline for the Lakers to get both of them? Are either one of those realistic? I think the Rui and a Wiggins trade is more realistic than Herb Jones. I think the asking price on him is going to be very, very high. I'm not saying for sure that Andrew Wiggins is available. And frankly, I don't even know that Andrew Wiggins is the right target for the Lakers cap-wise. When we look at that salary for next year, I think fit-wise, you can certainly argue that he fits with the Lakers, but is he significantly better than Rui Hachimura? I question how the Lakers would actually see that. I think skill set-wise, he fits better, but remember, he makes $30 million next season, $30.1 million. So that's a lot of flexibility you're going to have to give up. Or as Rob Pelinka likes to say, optionality. That's a lot of optionality you're not going to have over the summer. So it's not just, is it worth giving up Rui to get Andrew Wiggins? Because I think the answer would be yes, as much as the Lakers may like Rui. But is it worth Rui and also subtracting $30 million in flexibility from your books for next year? And that's where I think it gets to be more of a question mark. But if you're getting Herb Jones already and you're saying that you can get Herb Jones and Rui potentially, and Wiggins, that would make some sense. That would really move the needle for the Lakers. Harry said, I'd love to see Luka play the whole first quarter and maybe not even shoot a three. He's insane from mid, close range. Get that going early, get to the line, get into rhythm, and it'll open up from deep. Yeah, so with Luka, now we've seen the Lakers make a switch with how they're running things right now. They are no longer, as of this last game against the Sacramento Kings, running Luka through the entire first quarter. He's coming out about 3/4 the way through the first, and I don't mind that. As far as Luka, maybe not taking the three as much, I'm here for that. I'm good with that. Not taking the three as much, I'm okay with. I still think the three is a very important threat for him. But to your point, when you're talking about his efficiency, take a look at this. We look at Luka and what he provides out there right now for the Lakers. Obviously, he's a tremendous player, one of the best players in the NBA, bar none. But when we look at this at the rim, this is accuracy, shooting accuracy. Orange means good. The deeper orange it is, the better it is. And blue means bad. And the darker blue it is, the worse it is relative to everybody else that plays his position. So this is Luka Doncic via cleaning the glass, relative to how he stacks up compared to he's slotted here as a point guard, other point guards. So at the rim, his shooting accuracy is in the 98th percentile. That's phenomenal. That's what you want to see. To your point on this question, the mid-range shots, 86th percentile on the short mid, 58th percentile on the long mid-range shot, and mid-range shots in general, 81st percentile. Then you go and you look at his threes, the non-corner three, 36th percentile in accuracy. All three-pointers in general, 28th percentile. Now you can see he doesn't even rate from corner three. He does not take corner threes. He takes above the break threes, which are inherently more difficult. And he's been that way for a little bit now, since this season and last season. Luka primarily taking above the break threes, and his accuracy has not been there. So I'm for Luka limiting his 3-point volume a little bit. And I don't want to take too much away from that, because part of his aggression shooting that three is what causes the defense to press up on him, and it creates some of the opportunities that he gets to get into the paint. So I don't want to tell him to just stop shooting threes or anything like that, but I would like to see him be maybe a little bit more selective with his shots, and the ones that are very tightly contested, hold off on a few of those. Because when we go look at volume, we look at how often, or the percentage of his shot attempts that are coming from that range, you can see maybe a little bit too high. He is still taking most of his shots from the mid-range, but the percentage of his shot attempts from deep maybe a little bit high. So I'd be okay with bringing that number down just a little. I'm talking like 2 attempts per game less, and choosing to pass on those. All right. Shane said, would you trade Austin, Dalton, and Maxey for Mathurin, Toppin, Furphy, and picks? No, I would not. I would not. And I don't put a lot of value on Dalton Connect. I don't put a lot of value on Maxey, aside from just being an expiring contract. That's really all he is around the NBA. I like Ben Mathurin just fine. I think he's a very interesting young talent. As a restricted free agent, it doesn't sound like the Pacers want to be the team to pay him. Sounds like he wants to be in that 25 plus million range, the range that we saw Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, those guys go for this past year. By the way, if you're guys interested in other teams around the NBA than just the Lakers, you guys can check me out on the Basketball Bulletin as well as the NBA Front Office Show. And on both shows, I do cover the entire NBA. But Ben Mathurin is a good player. I think he's a worthwhile target, but as much as I like Furphy, Toppin, these guys, a lot of it depends on what the picks are, right? I mean, if the Pacers are telling me you're getting our first round pick this year, which right now, could be number 1 overall, okay, that's a very different conversation, right? But in general, I think that the bar that you have to cross in any Austin Reaves trade, and right or wrong, there are people who like Austin Reaves, there are people who don't like him for a variety of reasons, but if, regardless of where you're at on an Austin Reaves trade, I think for the Lakers to really consider moving him, they're going to need to get a player that they feel like is the guy next to Luka. That is the bar you're going to have to cross. You're going to have to clear that bar in order to trade Austin Reaves. And I don't think you're getting that in this. Could Ben Mathurin eventually become that? Maybe, but he's not there right now. So I think the Lakers would keep Austin, partner him with Luka moving forward, and off you go. If you were to tell me it's the Pacers pick from this year, okay, that probably changes things. But let's also keep in mind the Pacers probably wouldn't do that, because what's the guarantee that Austin is going to stay in Indiana? He could walk away in free agency. Hell, in an ideal world for the Lakers, he would hit free agency and come right back to LA. Indiana wouldn't want to lose that much to see that scenario play out. All right. Rui, Maxey for wings. Okay. Which wings? Adu, Vando, first round, and a first round swap for Herb. Okay, so Adu, Thero, Jared Vanderbilt, a first and a first round pick swap for Herb Jones. I think you'd probably have to do that if you're the Lakers, and I like Jared Vanderbilt just fine, unless you suddenly buy that he's a 50% shooter from 3, which he's been over the last couple of months on very low volume. But yeah, you'd probably have to consider, as much as it would hurt to give up Adu, Thero, because he is ultimately, it's going to take him a while to get there, but he could ultimately be the type of player the Lakers want. But that's interesting. I don't know if that's enough for the Pels. Of course, Vando has, I think, negative trade value right now. Second, a first swap, and Dalton for Keon Ellis. That's probably going a bit farther than I would for Keon. And first of all, the first round pick swap probably doesn't have any value really to the Kings. The Kings are going to start a rebuild, which does seem like they're finally starting to come to the realization that they're going to need to tear this thing down and go into a rebuild again. A pick swap with the Lakers has no value, because the Lakers have Luka. The Lakers will project to be at least decently good moving forward. And if the Kings are in a rebuild, the only way a pick swap has any value to a team is if they think they're going to be better than the team they're getting the swap rights with. Otherwise, there would be no reason to actually execute the swap. So really, it's just a second. So I don't think the Kings would value that swap. And then for the Lakers, I think you could use that swap elsewhere in a different kind of deal. So I don't see that. I don't mind Keon Ellis as a target for the Lakers at all. I like him. I'm just not going crazy to go get him. This LA team sucks at various things. Luka needs to be better at mid-range. I think he's already good at mid-range. I think you could argue he needs to take more of those shots and a few less threes. But there are some things that the Lakers are weak at, athleticism certainly being one of them. They definitely have had struggles with turning the ball over. They're getting better there, but they obviously have a long way to go defensively. There's some concerns with that, of course. So, yeah, there's a lot of areas they need to get better. In general, I think they need to increase their athleticism, their defensive capabilities without negatively impacting their shooting, which is a very difficult thing to do and not an easy thing because the players I'm describing, everybody's after athletic players who can really defend but also shoot. That's number one on everybody around the NBA's list. But the Lakers really, really, really need those guys. Greed. So what do you think of Ayo Dosunmu and Isaac Okoro for Gabe, Kleba, and our tradable first? To me, that's kind of right on the line. A lot of it would depend on, do you want to be the team to invest long-term in Ayo Dosunmu? I think that's an interesting idea. I like Ayo, and then Isaac Okoro, pretty cheap controlled contract next year, about $11 million. Ayo's got to be paid this summer, though. So you have to really feel like this is going to be our point of attack guy. This is the way we're going to stop Austin Reaves from being our primary point of attack defender, having to defend the other team's best perimeter guard night in, night out. And if that's what you believe Ayo Dosunmu can be, then this is worthwhile. If you don't, and I want to have a strong opinion on him one way or another, but I'm kind of on the fence on whether or not he can be that. But if you feel like, yes, he can, then this is pretty solid value for you if you're the Lakers. If you don't, then you're going to find yourself still needing to make other moves in the future here. I think Isaac Okoro does give you some measure of wing defense as well. These are the types of players the Lakers should target. Do you feel like LA is a championship contender after this? If so, I think really to push me over the top here and get a done deal, I'd be looking at what kind of protections can I put on that first? Can I make that first top 5 protected, top 10 protected? Right, that's what I'd be looking at in this. Terrence Mann and Haywood for them and a second. Remember, Haywood Highsmith hadn't played this year unless something changed just yesterday or something since I looked. Haywood Highsmith hasn't played yet. Terrence Mann is just fine, but long-term contract, 3 years, I believe, off the top of my head, under contract still. And a second, obviously lower risk there. So if we're talking about your 2 expirings for those guys, okay. But again, you have to buy that Highsmith is going to return to form. I think I lean, especially if I can put protections on it, with the Ayo and Isaac Okoro side, even at the cost of the first. All right. Thoughts on the officiating in the NBA lately? How do they keep getting away? They can't keep getting away with this. The bogus calls. How many more head coach ejections this season? Well, all right. So officiating in the NBA, I've been doing this a long time. Officiating in the NBA is always a topic of conversation. Always is. I always say NBA officiating is a very, very difficult job, a thankless job. I would be terrible at it as an NBA official. These guys move so fast. They're so strong. They're so crafty. How many of them are actively, second by second, computing what they can do to fool the officials? There's a lot of guys who are doing that out there, right? A lot of guys trying to get away with something, trying to get some kind of an edge. So it's a very difficult job, and it's a thankless job because you typically only talk about officials when it's bad. It's if the referee does what he's supposed to do and officiates the game properly, and there's no controversial calls or anything like that, which sometimes inherently doing the job means there are controversial calls, but then the referee isn't talked about at all. There's no praise for that, right? There's no praise for that. We expect the officials to bat 1,000, to get everything right. That's the expectation for referees. Any mistake gets magnified, and even mistakes get viewed through the lens of whatever team we're rooting for. So it's a difficult job. That's my point. That said, I think there is, for me, more so than referees getting calls wrong or bogus calls, it's inconsistency. I think we accept to a degree. Look, if you feel like your team got a bad call that went against them, you're going to be upset. But I think we generally accept the concept that human beings are going to make mistakes. Some calls are going to be wrong. That's just, it's the nature of having a human being refereeing an NBA game. It's going to happen. What I think the goal should be, more so than being 100% correct, being correct all the time, which is certainly NBA referees want to be as correct as possible. The goal needs to be consistency, because that's really the challenge. It's players, teams, how we do adjust game in, game out. What was a foul one game? Not a foul this game. This referee crew is calling the game tighter. This referee crew is letting them play. That is what really upsets players and coaches and fans, having to adjust game by game. Look, the Lakers play the Pistons tonight as I'm recording this. I know if this game is allowed to be extra physical, that will favor the Pistons. If this referee crew calls the game tight, that will help the Lakers. The outcome of the game could be determined by what referee crew you get. Do you get a crew that calls the game tight? Do you get a crew that lets you play? What are the points of emphasis for the officials for this particular game? Having to adjust on the fly to those things, game in, game out, is a real challenge and a real point of frustration. I would like to see that handled more so than the calls being made incorrectly. As long as the majority of calls, and I'm talking the vast majority of calls, are correct, I think that's okay. I think we can accept that some are going to be wrong. It's the consistency game to game that I think I'd like to see more of. All right. Raiders said, love the channel, guys. Thank you. Honestly, I know Vando is inconsistent offensively, but they looked way better in the first half with him and Smart on the floor, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, Jared Vanderbilt really gives you something on the defensive side of the ball that can help you out a lot. In fact, what's interesting is when you look at the Pistons, we talk so much about, well, the Lakers want 4 out. They want at least 4 guys on the floor who can shoot the 3, and that was why Jared Vanderbilt was out of the rotation for so long. But then you look at Detroit and what they've got. You've got in their starting lineup, you've got Cade Cunningham, you've got Oscar Thompson, who does not shoot the 3 well. He's sub 30% from deep right now. And then you have Jalen Duren. Now, you had Tobias Harris, who can shoot from outside. You had Duncan Robinson, who can shoot from outside. But Jalen Duren is a 15-foot jumper guy, but he's not a 3-ball guy. So really, with Detroit, who's the number 1 seed in the East, they've got 3 shooters on the floor, not 4. Now, their big does space to at least 15 feet, so that's helpful. But I think there is a path to success without having to have 4 shooters on the floor at all times, which is essentially what took Vando out of the rotation, because one of Jackson Hayes or DeAndre Ayton was always on the floor, which meant that Vando couldn't be if the hard and fast rule was you had to have 4 shooters on the floor minimum at all times. So I think there is a path to success. It comes from having increased athleticism, increased ability to pressure on the rim, generate extra possessions on the offensive glass. I think all of those are things that Vando can do, with the exception of maybe putting pressure on the rim, but he can be a factor on the offensive glass for sure. He rates out well as an offensive rebounder. The increased athleticism, yes, check that box. The defense being better, forcing more turnovers, yes. All of those things we already see reflected in, actually, ironically, the way the Pistons play. So I don't think it needs to be. It's been the Lakers' strategy. I don't think it needs to be a 4-out minimum offense. Is it ideal that everybody on the floor can shoot? Yes, that would certainly be ideal. But I think there are other avenues that need to be considered. And I think the Lakers are starting to go to that to increase the talent as well as increase the defense that they put out there on the floor. And I think that's an important thing, finding that balance between the offense and defense, which is obviously a work in progress. All right, here's another trade. Kleba, Connect, Jake LaRavia and the first for Ellis, Monk, and a second. I would not do that. I would not give up I'm only giving up the first in a deal where I know I'm getting my fifth starter locked in. I feel like this guy can start with Luka for the next 5 years. That's what I want if I'm giving up that first round pick. And that's where, when we talked a little bit ago about Ayo Dosunmu, is he that? That's really the question for that. Or is Isaac Okoro that, right? That's what you're looking for. I'm only giving up the first if I'm getting my locked in 5+ years starter. Well, let's say 3+ years starter. 5 years is a long time, but that's what I'm looking for. Even though I'm getting a second back in the deal, I'm not touching that first unless I'm getting a starter. I don't think I'm getting that in Keon Ellis or Malik Monk. The second trade, Rui, Gabe Vincent, and a 27-second and a 32-second. I think they only have 1 second to trade. Pretty sure they only have 1 second to trade. But anyway, the second they picked up from the Kings. Got it. Flipping that second in the previous trade. Okay, so Rui, Vincent, 2 seconds for Wiggins and Johnson. Perimeter defense, athleticism, 3-point volume, and bench scoring. So the net result here, what we're talking, Keshad Johnson here, is that what we're looking at with Miami? I mean, drilling this down to Rui, Gabe, and a second for Wiggins, really? Like, I'd be, again, it gets back to, do you want to give up $30 million in flexibility over the summer? That's a lot. Now, you could argue, well, Rui's going to eat up some of that anyway, because even if you don't trade Rui, that doesn't mean you're just going to let him go over the summer. So you may come to terms, if you don't trade Rui by February 5th, like, it wouldn't shock me if the Lakers were to extend Rui post February 5th. They have all the way until June 30th to do it. I don't think Rui is a guy. We've talked a lot about Rui not being in the starting lineup and why we believe he shouldn't be. It's not because we don't believe he should be he's a good player. It's a very different conversation. I think Rui's a very good player. I think he's an important player for the Lakers. I think the Lakers without Rui tonight are going to be missing him against the Pistons. But Rui is a good player. I don't think he fits in the starting lineup with the Lakers right now. But that also doesn't mean you want to lose him for nothing. And so I could see the Lakers actually extending Rui, which therefore would eat into that $30 million that I'm talking about that Andrew Wiggins would take up. So I'm not totally opposed to doing a move like that. If it's Rui, Gabe, and a second, send Gabe back to Miami, and you're getting Andrew Wiggins, especially with, I'm getting more and more optimistic about Nick Smith, and I'm becoming more open to losing Gabe without bringing back another guard. So that's something that I would at least have some interest in if I'm the Lakers. And frankly, I think I would be exploring the trade market looking for something else before just settling on Wiggins. But push comes to shove, February 5th, maybe February 4th, and the clock's ticking and there's nothing, and it's that or stand pat. Okay, I'm probably pulling the trigger on something like that. DJ said, not only did we all see this coming with the same guys, Rui and Connect, Rob's continued negligence with the roster set the table for Austin Reaves and Luka's lingering injuries. So saying that the Lakers' lack of depth created a situation where Austin and Luka had to play more, and that's why they've had these injury issues. And now Austin is out. I'm penciling him in as being not available. Penciling him out, I guess, as being not available to the All-Star break, I think is very possible. So, yeah, I mean, part of this, like Dalton Connect not hitting definitely hurt. He's not hit so far. And I don't mean like just hit on his shots, like hit as a player. Adu Thuro not quite being ready at this point, which is not his fault in any way. Bronny, you could argue Bronny taking up a roster spot kind of hurts. Like if that was, a lot of people made the point, like if Bronny was Jordan Goodwin instead, obviously that's a clear rotation player that you've got right there. That would be helpful right now as the Lakers are shorthanded. So I think there is something to that. That said, I also think there is, when we look at, well, why didn't the Lakers do more this last summer? Remember, 2 summers ago, they did nothing. They drafted Bronny, they drafted Connect. That was it. They sat out the rest of the summer. They did nothing. So by comparison, this past summer, making multiple trades to move up and get Adu Thuro, then getting Marcus Smart, DeAndre Ayton, and Jake LaRavia, who I think have become 3 critical rotation players for the Lakers so far this year. They actually did a lot this summer. That said, could they have done more? Yes, but I think it's defensible given what they did accomplish over the summer to say, before we go and make another big move to try to really add more to this team, let's see what they look like on the floor. Because we only have so many assets available to trade. And if we're going to trade something, we need to know what the result is going to be of that trade. We need to know that we're getting real production that we need out of this. We can look at the team on paper and say, well, they're defensively deficient. They need more athleticism. They need X, Y, and Z. And I think those things have largely proven to be true. But there was some value, I think, to jumping on and doing something that would to sitting out anyway and waiting for the trade market to materialize this season and seeing what they've got available to them right now. I think when we look at, does this Lakers roster need more depth in general? Yes, and that's been the case for years. That's a much bigger conversation about why they're in a position where this roster constantly feels like, for years now, has felt like it's missing a player, 2 players, 3 players. Like it feels like they're missing multiple players. You look at this roster, you go, wait, but shouldn't we have 1 more, 2 more, 3 more players that are rotation caliber? And I think part of that is, yes, some of it does fall on Bronny taking up a roster spot. That's part of it. Let's be honest, that's part of it. But also when we look at the exceptions the Lakers have had over the years, the mid-levels, Kendrick Nunn, Montrezl Harrell, Lonnie Walker, where are those guys right now? They're all gone. These guys aren't even in the NBA right now. Gabe Vincent, did that work out for them? No. Now, they thought they were getting Bruce Brown. They thought and then Indiana swooped in, this was a few years ago, and offered him like double the money. They thought Bruce Brown was coming. Otherwise, it would be Bruce Brown on this roster right now and not Gabe Vincent. And I think that's an upgrade there. But nonetheless, it's been some misses in free agency. It's been a constant churn of assets as well. Still, I think, suffering from the Russell Westbrook trade. That's put them in this situation. They've been constantly churning through assets to try to make up for that. You gave up a first to get Russ. You gave up a first to get him off the roster. That in and of itself is going to put you a little bit behind. Then you gave up a bunch of second rounders in turning D'Angelo Russell into Dorian Finney-Smith. You added some seconds in the Thomas Bryant trade, which is a rarity for the Lakers to actually get picks back in a trade. But you also used the same number of seconds in the Rui Hachimura trade, turning Kendrick Nunn, who wound up being a bad signing, into Rui Hachimura, cost you second round picks. So all of this, and there's even more that we could go into, it has combined to create the situation the Lakers are in now, where the assets are looking, the wallet's pretty empty, and the roster just constantly feels a player, 2 players thin. And that's even noting that, I mean, you pretty much hit on all 3 of your big signings over the summer. LaRavia, Ayton, and Smart have all been rotation players for them. 2 of them have been, one of them, Ayton, has been a locked-in starter every time he plays, and then Smart has been a sometimes starter as well. So you've gotten, I think, 3 hits here, and yet the roster still feels thin. And I think that speaks to some of the misses that they've had over the last 5 years or so. What's the first thing you would change? First thing I would change about the Lakers, the roster, the trade for, I think there has to be an understanding that where the Lakers need to get compared to where they are right now, and I'm not talking about just talent level, ability to win, all of that, but stylistically, where they need to get, knowing that the plan is now you are building this team around Luka. That's the lens everything is looking through. There has to be an understanding that it's not going to happen immediately. You're not going to, at the trade deadline, cash in a bunch of players, bring back a bunch of other players, and suddenly have everything that you need to construct a roster perfectly around Luka. And maybe that's not a surprise, right? I mean, getting Luka was a big surprise. We're less than a year removed from that. We're less than a year removed from the most shocking trade in NBA history. Don't forget, when the Lakers made the Luka trade, all the conversations at that point were about getting another big, right? It was about getting another big for this Lakers roster. Luka became available, and they traded their starting center in Anthony Davis to go get Luka, and rightfully so. There's a reason why so many teams around the NBA were upset about this, but you really did not. They didn't know they could get him. You did not have a roster that was optimized for Luka Doncic. You didn't have that because why would you, right? You wouldn't know that you had the ability. Now, you could argue that optimizing a roster for Luka is essentially the same job as optimizing a roster for LeBron, or at least very, very similar. And the Lakers haven't done a good enough job of that. And that's, I think, a fair point. But they found themselves in a situation where their roster was even more unbalanced after getting Luka. But it's Luka, so you do it. So here we are, less than a year removed. Maybe it's to be expected that the roster would still need changes and they would need to make adjustments. I think it's going to be a process. I think it may cause some painful conversations. And I think the first thing, though, that I'm looking at, by the way, happy birthday, LeBron. It's LeBron's salary this summer. I don't think, and LeBron is great. Don't hear what I'm not saying. He might be the greatest ever. I've enjoyed his time with the Lakers. I hope it continues. I hope he plays, whenever he plays his final game, I hope it happens in a Lakers jersey. So I just want to be clear on where I stand on all of that. I don't think you can give LeBron a max salary this summer. I don't think you can give him that. I think you've got to look at what Kevin Durant did, taking less with the Houston Rockets. I think LeBron needs to take even less than that if he's going to continue to play with the Lakers, because I think the kinds of pieces you're going to need to go get in order to really make this team go, you're going to need as much financial flexibility as you can get. And so I think you're going to have to look at LeBron. Now, there's other conversations as well that are going to come into that. What do you do with Rui? What does DeAndre Ayton do? He's got a player option. What happens with Austin Reaves? Does Austin get a full max? I think based on the way he's played, you can make the argument for it. Would it be helpful for the Lakers if he didn't? Yes. Yeah. Now, he has a low cap hold. So this summer, you could still make whether he gets a max or not, you can make all the moves that you want anyway, whether or not you give him a max. So that has to be a factor until you start, approaching that first apron and spending that kind of money. But the Lakers projecting to be one of the bigger cap space teams in the NBA, maybe that shouldn't be as large of a concern. But all of this said, I think, what am I changing? First thing, it's what do I need to do to get from point A to point B? And point B is I'm going to surround Luka. If Austin's still around, it's Austin as well, with as many athletic, wing, switchy, defensive players that can shoot that I can possibly get my hands on. What am I going to do to get that? And it may even be a pivot towards a rim protecting big. I don't know. I think Ayton has been more than fine, but you need athleticism around these guys. You need guys who can attack off the bounce. You need athleticism to really fit in with this team. And it's going to be, what is it going to take to get there? And understanding that that's going to be a process. And LeBron may or may not be part of that process. I think if LeBron says, I want to come back and you guys do your shopping and I will fit in my salary wherever I can when the dust settles, fantastic. Welcome back, LeBron James. If LeBron says, I want a full max because I'm LeBron James, and he can argue he's worth it. I'm not saying he's definitively not, but I think there may be a difficult conversation there if you're the Lakers and you're in that situation. And again, he's great. I think he's incredibly important to this Lakers team while Austin is out right now. I think that's going to be a big thing to watch this summer, though. It's where does LeBron actually land salary-wise? If he decides to continue playing and if he wants to be a Laker and if the Lakers want to offer him a contract, everything up in the air. And a lot of that's going to be determined by how the rest of this year plays out. Ryan said, think JJ attempts to bench LeBron and it's to drive a trade request. No, I can't see that. I can't see that. And especially now that this question may have come in before Austin was injured. But I can't see JJ benching LeBron to try to drive him away, right? I can't see that. Presser was more than about Rui last night. Oh, JJ's comments that he made after the game against Houston about the same players consistently not putting in the effort. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, it was definitely about more than just Rui, for sure. It's not all on Rui at all. There's no way. So, yeah, I don't see the Lakers trying to force LeBron out. I don't see that being a thing. Especially not like, be different if LeBron had like 3 years under contract and he's got a player option. You're like, maybe we need to part ways. Not that they should ever force a player out and like try to make a player uncomfortable so they'll leave. But LeBron and the Lakers, if either side decides we don't want to do this anymore, we're done with this, either side can walk away this summer. That's it. I mean, just, you want to be out of the LeBron business, just don't give him a new contract. That's it. Done. It's over. End of story. If you're LeBron and you don't want to be a Laker anymore, you don't want to be in the Lakers business anymore, okay, don't sign a new contract. Maybe they offer it to you, maybe they don't. If they offer it to you and you don't want to do it anymore, don't sign the contract. Simple. Very easy. If either side wants to exit this relationship, the off-ramp is coming up in July. It's that simple. And I don't think that's necessarily where we're going to land. I don't think the Lakers are desperate to get out of the LeBron business. I don't think LeBron is desperate to get out of the Lakers business. But I think it's going to depend on how things go the rest of the season. This one, Zuzi said, I think it's more of a personal problem than effort. Everyone is jumping over Luka, blowing by Luka, Rui, and LeBron, and play bully ball Austin. Now, there's something to, like, is there a ceiling to what the Lakers can be due to their lack of athleticism? Yes, I think there's something to that. But that's also why you need effort to be at a high, not necessarily at a maximum level. It's a long season, but your effort level has to be high, and it's going to be very apparent when it's not with this team because you're already at a deficit when it comes to athleticism. So there's something to what you're saying in that the personnel are an issue, but I think it makes when the effort is not there, it makes the athleticism stick out like a sore thumb and become an insurmountable hurdle. So for the Lakers, the effort level and the level of competitiveness, how locked in the team is, has to be at a high night in, night out if you're going to mitigate in any way that athleticism deficit. You can get by without athleticism to a degree. It's going to be a problem, but you can get by without it if everybody is locked in and you're getting peak effort. If you're not getting that effort level, then it's really going to be obvious that you are athletically not on the same level as your opponent. Samir said, we're more than a trade away. Yeah, I mean, to get to the team I'm talking about with athletic players around Luka, yeah, you're more than a trade away. This roster needs an overhaul that likely can only happen in the offseason. Is it time to face reality? Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's absolutely right. Now, roster needs an overhaul. It makes it sound like you need to jettison everyone from the team. I don't think you have to go quite that far, but is it likely that at the trade deadline this year, you're going to add everything you need in order to turn this team into the ideal team around Luka? No, it is not likely at all. That should not be the expectation. I think this is going to be a process that's going to take time, and it's not going to take just one trade cycle to do it. It's going to take the offseason. It's going to take the trade deadline. It's going to take the summer. And perhaps more than that. So what you need to really do is make moves that put you on a certain trajectory. That's what you're looking to do. Make moves that put you on that path. It's not going to get you to the end of the path, but you want to make progress down that path towards having the type of team you need around Luka. That's the reality of the situation. Now, in the meantime, as you're doing that, as you're advancing down that path, can you do some things that will also afford you the ability to have a puncher's chance this year, right? To have an opportunity to contend with some of these teams, to have an opportunity to say, hey, we get into a second round series against a team that is a tough matchup for us, against the Rockets, against the Thunder, against a team that's a tough matchup. Can we do enough to where we can give ourselves a shot, to where LeBron has a transcendent series, to where Luka has a transcendent series? One of them's able to go nuclear enough. Austin has a big series, right? one of them goes nuclear enough times that next thing you know, you've got 4 wins and you're moving on. That's what you're looking to do in the here and now, while making moves that keep you on a path towards what ultimately this team needs to look like. I don't buy Braun as part of the same guy's rhetoric. Oh, that's interesting. The only spark defensively last night was with Vando, Smart, Braun, Reaves, and DA. He's far from the main issue defensively. In my opinion, we were always dead on arrival with Rui at the 3. I do think Rui at the 3 is out of position. That's part of why. It's not just I want the Lakers to be better. That's always going to be my driving central theme, right? Is I want the Lakers to be better. But I think it's better for Rui to come off the bench too, because I do think slotting wise, he's much better as a power forward. I just think it's as simple as that. So bringing Rui off the bench in that regard makes sense. As far as LeBron not being part of the same guys stuff, we see him miss rotations frequently. There is a big difference between when he's locked in and when he's not. And you can kind of tell. I'm not even surprised, right? I mean, you hit 40, he's 41. Happy birthday again. He's 41 today. Like, some days you've got it, some days you don't. That's the human body. It's the way it goes. Some days you got it, some days you don't. So is it a surprise that sometimes it looks like he's not playing quite as hard? Sometimes he's not making the extra effort and closing out, and other times he looks like he's 30? No, it's not. That's just called being 40 years old. That's the way it goes. I do think LeBron, though, the team follows him, right or wrong, and frankly, it's probably wrong that it's this way, but the team does follow his energy and effort level to a degree. And so whether it's appropriate or not, the Lakers need him to be the motor to be turned up quite a bit. And then you're walking that fine line between what can you get out of him without also risking injury based on the way that he's playing and all of that. So I think LeBron does need to be one of the guys that's locked in on a night in, night out basis. That's just a necessity for the Lakers. Again, it's a need. Is it fair? No, but what you need isn't always fair either. Mark has to write a blank check to Presti. Well, if you're Sam Presti, are you leaving OKC right now? Like, think about this. You've been accumulating this treasure room full of draft capital and young talent for years. And now, all of the losing, all of the tanking, all the scrupulous moves, it's all paying off. It's all paying off. You've been scrimping and saving for years. Your account has been gaining interest. Your investments have been doing well. And now, finally, you've got enough to where you can buy that retirement home on the beach and you can kick back. Not that Sam Presti is retired, but you can enjoy the fruits of your labors at this point. That's where Sam Presti is at. And you can say LA, much bigger market and all that kind of stuff. He just won a championship. His team is set for a long time. He's got a lot of young talent, got all the picks he needs to make the moves that he needs. I don't think Sam Presti is going anywhere. Now, maybe you could say they offered to double his salary or something. Does that change things? Maybe. But if I'm Sam Presti, it's time. You've built the business. Now it's time to kick back and let the royalty checks come in. Are we heading towards uncomfy LeBron territory? Offense hasn't been great either. JJ did a lot of process issues on both sides, has a lot of process issues on both sides of the ball. Well, I do think the Lakers ran a lot more organized offense against Sacramento. I know this question came in before that game, but you've got that. I thought LeBron looked very springy, very engaged against Sacramento as well. So when it comes to uncomfortable LeBron territory, that's probably more the conversation I was having a few moments ago about LeBron and his contract this summer. That's where I think most of the discomfort would probably come from with him. We took Goodwin and DFS for granted. They allowed us to play hard and hit our flaws with less depth. Goodwin, yeah. So the challenge I have with both of those guys is I think the decision to allow, and I can't say for sure the Lakers had the decision to make on Dorian Finney-Smith's part. Remember, he had to decide where he wanted to sign. Maybe he didn't want to sign with the Lakers. I don't know. But even if the Lakers had they did have the choice with Goodwin. Even if they had the choice with both, you can argue that while it would have been nice to keep them, that they made the right decision. Losing Goodwin meant gaining Marcus Smart. And I certainly think Marcus Smart is a better player than Jordan Goodwin. That said, would it be great to have Goodwin right now? Yes. Would it have been great if they had figured out a way to just keep him? Yeah. And there probably would have been paths to do that, but they would have cost more, right? They would have cost an asset to move a contract off your books. So ultimately, they decided not to do that. Hindsight being 2020, should they have just done it? Depends on what the true cost would have been. But yes, I think this team would be better with Jordan Goodwin on it. I don't think that's even a debate. They miss him for sure. Dorian Finney-Smith, losing him was not good. You turned 3 second-round picks into Dorian Finney-Smith. Plus, it was D'Angelo Russell as well into Dorian Finney-Smith. Losing him's not good. But you can look at it as you took those 3 second-round picks plus D'Angelo Russell, and you turned that into Jake LaRavia, DeAndre Ayton, and Marcus Smart. Because that's effectively what the Lakers were able to do with the added flexibility of Dorian Finney-Smith leaving, because that put them into a different situation, put them below the first-tier apron, allowed them to use their full mid-level exception. They split the MLE between LaRavia and Ayton, and then they were able to use the leftover money in addition to moving on from Goodwin and turn that into Marcus Smart. So I think that's overall a net positive for the Lakers when we look at what happened. Yeah, it's not ideal. The dream scenario would be to keep all of them. Imagine if they had Goodwin, DFS, Ayton, Smart, LaRavia. We're cooking. Let's go. Now, DFS hasn't played much this season due to injury, but nonetheless, that would be the ideal situation. Of course, that's not really possible the way everything all worked out. But I think given what the Lakers pivoted to, it does make losing those players sting a bit less. Nonetheless, still stings. Vando is certainly a bright spot. Love his activity. Should have been the 6th or 7th man this whole time. Yeah, I mean, I think it's become pretty clear that they needed his defense out there on the floor, and I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. It feels like he's definitely played his way into a full spot. All right. Energy is fire today. Obviously this question came in after the post-Christmas Day rant. All three of us were a little cranky that day. I think all Lakers fans were. At this point, I think a LeBron breakup needs to be on the table. Not that it can't work. It's just too difficult in LeBron's window to thread the needle to make it work. And Rob is inept. I think Rob it's rather than inept, I think it's more of a mixed bag with what Rob Pelinka has done as in his Lakers tenure. He's hit on some really big things. He's also missed on some singles, and the margins I think have been a challenge for the Lakers in general. But when it comes to LeBron, again, if a breakup is where this needs to go, and I don't necessarily think that's where it's going, but if that's where it needs to go, I don't see it happening in the next 5+ weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, till the trade deadline. I see it happening over the summer, and that's already kind of baked in, right? I mean, if either party, the Lakers or LeBron, decides, I don't want to do this anymore, both parties could decide that's it. So that's it. You wash your hands and you move on, and that's the end of that, right? So a LeBron breakup needs to be on the table. The only way that's happening is if LeBron goes to the Lakers in terms of trading LeBron. LeBron goes to the Lakers and says, please trade me. They're not waiving him. I know there was that conversation a little bit over the summer. Like people kept saying, oh, they should waive and stretch LeBron or just buy him out or whatever. It made no sense. There was never, it wouldn't have opened up enough flexibility for the Lakers to do anything significant, nor their players to target anyway on the market. That never made sense from anybody that was speaking from a point of more than just an emotional, oh, get LeBron off this roster type reaction. The only way LeBron is moving off of this team this season is if he goes to the Lakers and says, I don't want to be a Laker anymore, trade me. He has a no trade clause. Even if the Lakers get a great offer, the Cavs call up and say, hey, we're tired of Evan Mobley. We'll give him to you. Give us LeBron. If LeBron says, no, I want to stay in LA, that's it. It's done. And no, the Cavs would never do that. That's a ridiculous hypothetical. But the point is, if the Lakers are going to get out of the LeBron business, it's happening this summer. It's extremely unlikely that happens by the trade deadline. Overall is needed. They need a starting center, guard, and small forward. Okay. Ayton, Reaves, Rui would be very good bench unit, not happening this year. So Ayton, I think there's questions. I think he's had a very good season. I think the bang for your buck on $8 million has been phenomenal for DeAndre Ayton. I think there are questions about what, whether or not ultimately he is the type of big you need with Luka. And do you need somebody who's a bit better at erasing mistakes on the perimeter? Do you need somebody who can be a rim protector for you? Because that's not really, Ayton has done fine there, but he's not like a top tier rim protecting big. Now, he is better at some things than some of the more prolific shot blockers are. And that includes the 15-footer, which he's really good at. I liked his screening. He's done a nice job screening it and has a good rhythm with Luka, as well as Austin and LeBron with the screen and the rescreen actions that we're seeing. So I think Ayton has been a positive for this team overall. I like what he's done. Again, he's provided tremendous value when we talk about the alternatives were Brook Lopez and Clint Capella, and those are the guys we're talking about. I think Ayton has done very, very well, and the Lakers have been very fortunate to get him when they did. But again, at a conceptual level, we can talk about what do you really need, and it's even at the 5, it's athleticism, it's defense. Are those things that Ayton possess? Kind of. I mean, he's not the least athletic center out there, but he's not the same as some of these crazy shot blocking, bigs. Or even the extremely mobile bigs when we talk about like a Nick Claxton or someone like that. Now, do you want to give up? Again, that's also where you get into opportunity cost. Is it worth it to give up the assets required to long-term turn Ayton into, let's say, Nick Claxton versus use those assets to get more wings, to get help on the wing or help at the guard position? I'd rather focus on the latter and hang on to Ayton if that's the choice. Okay. Jeannie also needs to go. She owns this too. Well, she's no longer the majority owner. She is in place in the Lakers organization as the governor for the foreseeable future based on the sale to Mark Walter. But she is no longer the owner of the team. So, I mean, Mark Walter's now going to be the prime decision maker, or the buck's going to stop with him in terms of decisions. But it does seem like he wants to empower smart basketball people the way he has with baseball, with the Dodgers. Now, what I would like to see, I don't necessarily think that means, getting rid of Jeannie or whatever. I don't know that he even can. I think contractually it's in there that she will remain the governor spot. And I don't think it necessarily means you have to get rid of Rob Pelinka or anything either. But can you continue to add smart basketball minds to your brain trust? Can you continue to do that? I think that's what we've seen the Dodgers do. So can we see something like that with the Lakers, where you continue to add talent, add more smart voices to the room with LA? That's something to keep an eye on. All right. I have more questions to get to, but we're at about an hour here, which is more than enough, especially with the game coming up tonight as I'm recording this. I appreciate all of you for joining. We will get to the super chat questions. I will try to make sure I knock these out. But again, everybody, thank you all so much. Jason, Jovan, and I, when we started this, by the way, if you're listening to the end of this, if you're all the way here at an hour, put in the description, in the comment section, just say I'm a real one. That way we know you made it all the way to the end. But thank you, seriously, to all of you. We didn't know for sure what the response would be. We had a sense that people would want this, that they would enjoy the show with the three of us coming together. But we've been blown away by the support, by the response that we've received. So seriously, thank you to all of you for allowing us to keep doing this and continue to grow the Lakers Collective. Thanks again, everybody. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.